Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast, Prep Edition. KJ Pilcher alongside Wyatt Schultz of the Predicament and Dick Briggs, bringing you some breakdown from last week's conference competition, and then kind of look ahead as postseason begins this week. Is it kind of strange that we're already looking? Think about this. In about 6 days, there are going to be some people that put on their shoes and take them off for the last time.
Yeah.
Always kind of gets me.
And then when you miss them 2 weeks of snow, it just flew by.
Yeah.
Agreed. That's what made it even faster this
Yeah.
year. With missing competition like that.
So, Super Bowl,
Great game.
happy that the Chiefs won. Upset
Yeah.
the 49ers lost. What?
I really
Either?
didn't care who won. I guess I was kind of rooting for KC, but at the same time, I was hoping for a good game, and that's what it turned out to be for me, I guess. I thought it was a great game.
I don't watch NFL, but I did have the game on. I like the commercials. You never really like to see what's new and so forth. But there was 5 Iowa kids that were affiliated, 4 Hawkeyes and 1 Panther, I guess, that were on the rosters, and who doesn't like number 85, right? I mean, he's just fun. So I kind of watched it.
I had a couple nice catches there.
Yeah, I identified with him a lot during the game.
They were
I
double
thought.
teaming him. I saw in one play that.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
even the announcers. I thought the announcers mentioned Kittle quite often.
Yeah. And even Nathan could correct me, but Ben Neiman came up with a couple big plays. Hitchens, Anthony Hitchens, a quarterback or linebacker for Kansas City, delivered a blow on Garoppolo, the quarterback that either hurried to throw or might have resulted in a pick. Maybe it was just an incompletion, and he came through on a blitz on a third down or something. But yeah, the Iowa kids made an impression and stuff in that game, or contributions at least. Do you want to do the?
Yeah,
Let's make the call.
All right.
We'll jump in.
Okay, here we go. So you make the call.
All right.
Here's the question, guys.
See how stupid I can sound.
It's not a true and false, but it's an A or B.
A or B. Okay.
So there's still a 50-50. I didn't put any other foils in for you.
Multiple choice at its very least.
Yeah, at the very least. Intentionally going out of the wrestling area or forcing an opponent out of the wrestling area to avoid an imminent scoring situation is A, stalling and should be awarded according to the stalling progression chart, or B, a technical violation and should be penalized without warning according to the penalty progression chart. So in other words, if I'm in the middle of the mat and maybe I push you straight out, or if that's not a good. Let's do this one where I'm in the middle of the mat and I take a shot on you and you dive out of bounds or go directly out of bounds. Should that be stalling or should that be a penalty point?
You want me to go first this time? You always see me go first.
Yeah.
And then okay.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna say it's stalling because I think either at some level they've gotten rid of the fleeing the mat call. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they changed that instead of fleeing the mat. That it's an automatic stall warning, and then would go to, depending on how many stall warnings you have, would result in a point or whatever. So I'm going to say, I can't remember which is which.
A is stalling. B
so
is
I'm going
the
to say
technical
stalling.
violation.
I'm going to say A. I'm going to go with A.
And I would
The
say.
ball is in your court. Schultz.
I know, because see, this way we can disagree. We can agree to disagree.
Sure.
And so I'll go with a technical violation and an automatic point for fleeing the call, or for fleeing the move.
Mm-hmm. So, intentionally going out of the wrestling area or forcing an opponent out of the wrestling area to avoid an imminent scoring opportunity is a technical violation.
I got one!
There goes his 100%.
My streak is gone.
So it is. It should be awarded as a technical violation. Some might award it. It's kind of a judgment call. What's imminent, what's not. But if it's an imminent scoring opportunity, it should be counted as a technical violation at 1 point. So without warning. So that's a bit of a new rule, or
Awesome.
it's at least an emphasis this year.
I got one right.
Congratulations. There goes your 100%. You're off 0.
I am.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
quit pouting, KJ.
Here we
You
are.
must not know me very well. I'll keep pouting for the rest of the week. Oh, what a bummer. I overthought that. All right. So what I didn't overthink was some of the competition.
Before we get started,
Sure.
I'm going to say this because
Sure.
it needs to be said, if you don't mind.
No,
This is the Gazette page in the Sunday edition, entirely devoted, not just to this page, but entirely devoted to wrestling. And kudos and thank you to the Gazette and to UKJ and all the staff and editors and so forth for thinking so much of high school wrestling and covering it for us.
That was pretty cool. We were able to get coverage for 2 meets. I was at the Wamac meet. Wyatt, you were at the MVC meet. And the page also has a really nice column from Mike Loss about the Penn State-Iowa duel and his the jump from the front page story that he had as well. And if you've ever read anything that Mike Loss has written, I mean, he's a nationally recognized columnist for a reason, and it's year in and year out. So make sure to give that
Great
a
read.
read if you get a chance. But yeah, it was really cool, and hope to have the same this week. But where do we want to start first? We want to start at Dubuque, where you were at, or Manchester, where I was?
Let's go with yours first,
Okay. Ooh, hey, let's
because I got it on top.
before we even get to that, let's touch on what happened last Thursday.
Okay.
Because in our area, we had 2 number 1 versus number 2 duels. And we'll sorry for zigzagging all around here, but you were at Lisbon for the Don Bosco Lisbon duel between the top 2 teams in 1A. I happened to be at Independence for the 2A clash between West Delaware and Indy. Yours was a little bit closer as far as score goes.
To me, it was interesting because you wonder if they're going to go weight to weight, what their normal wrestling weight is. Don Bosco decided to adjust their lineup a little bit. Easton Larson at 32 weighed in at 38, and knowing beforehand that he was actually going to bump up to 45.
Oh, really?
And so the 45, which was Ranavardi, bumped up to 50, and then they adjusted the whole lineup, and they came out winners on all cases. So, which to me was interesting, because I had some comments, this is a dual meet. Let's make the adjustments at the state tournament to win the state tournament, not the dual meet.
Sure.
But, so there's all kinds of thinking going on, because now it'll give Lisbon time to adjust or counter theirs. So, and it was a full house. I mean, there was standing room only. The bleachers were full. Both end zones were full, about 2 or 3 deep back there. So it was an awesome crowd. And then at the the intermission, they honored Brad Smith with being the winningest coach in Iowa, as well as bringing out the 1980 state championship team, which was kind of interesting, because the one at the top of my head that was on the team was Scott Morningstar,
Sure.
one of the 4-time, although it was only, I think, 1 year that Brad was with him.
I think 2.
2.
Or 2 years.
2, yeah.
And so I got to meet a few of those guys because they kind of gave a little tour of the school too.
Okay.
But, great dual meet, and probably like yours, that was loud and vocal.
Oh, I'm sure between those 2 programs.
Yeah, but also they did recognize Don Bosco for making the rivalry and making both programs better.
Sure.
Because of their competitiveness,
Yep.
which I thought was pretty cool.
And then Don Bosco kind of handled him.
They really did, because they adjusted those weights.
Right.
Larson moved up to 45, then Ranavardi pinned Marshall Houck,
Okay.
and I see in the Tri-Rivers, then Hawk didn't wrestle in the
Yeah.
Tri-Rivers, so I think he was sick that night and
Okay.
wanted to wrestle anyway. And so, which I'm kind of guessing is why they held him out on Saturday.
Okay. See, I was kind of wondering because after the Clinton, we talked about it last week, the
Bloody nose.
bloody nose, and he apparently has that issue during practice a lot. I wondered if maybe he missed the Tri-Rivers because they were going to go have it cauterized and get it done now, so it wasn't going to be an issue with the sectional starting this weekend.
Yeah.
But might have been just because he was under the weather
I think he was
Thursday
a-
and maybe lingering.
Yeah, I
into
think he
the
was a little
weekend.
under the weather because he didn't have any blood issues on that match.
Sure.
So I would say it was more under the weather than a blood issue
Anything.
or
Okay.
getting his nose fixed.
Fixed. Okay.
But of course, then you had the 10 olds coming up, that won, and all their adjustments paid off for them.
Yeah, and that's one we'll see those two very well.
More than likely.
More than likely, will face each other in Des Moines here in 2 weeks.
Because the way it appears to me, and I'm sure it does to you, those two are just head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yep, in 1A.
Yeah.
Especially dual-wise.
Especially because they're both fielding full lineups and their weak weights. I shouldn't say it that way, but they're solid at every weight.
Yeah, they've got a competitive guy.
yeah.
Yep. And Cole Clark had a nice win. Did he wrestle even?
Yes,
Thomas even. That was
right.
Yeah.
And pretty much handled him through that whole match. It wasn't a slip takedown or anything. He pretty much handled Thomas throughout that whole match. And if anybody's watched Thomas, to me he is so hard to score on. But and I forget what the score was, maybe 7-2 or something. But he handled him pretty well.
Yeah. So, and I was at the other 1-2 at West Delaware, or between West Delaware and Indy, and that duel probably started as tough as it could for Indy, where West Delaware came out, got bonus points right out of the gate, and just rolled the rest of the way. Stavely Maury got a technical fall at 132. Then I believe Logan Payton followed with a pin. They forfeited a weight class, and then things just kind of rolled that way for Independence.
What weight did they start at?
132.
32. Then was that one of them situations where they get on a roll and it just feed each other?
It very well could have been. That just once Maury got that technical fall, you could just feel just everything kind of
The
tilt to
momentum.
one end of the gym.
Yeah.
And it rolled into the Payton brothers.
No offense to Indy, but I think West Delaware might be the best team in
Well,
the state at any level in a dual meet. So, yeah, you definitely need that. But man, West Delaware is loaded.
But just
Top to bottom.
and just look what they did against Independence in Williamsburg, who were tied at number
Right.
2, and they won 24 out of 28 matches against those two in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
I mean, and I think Williamsburg wins 138 no matter what, but they forfeited that weight for whatever reason, and that was a match that Schropp beat Payton by major decision in the finals of the Wamac, but it could have been less than that. Only gave up 6 points to Williamsburg and just 12 to Independence. But yeah, like you said, West Delaware is just head and shoulders from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Especially
when we
in
get to the
2A.
WAMAC, we're going to kind of understand
Yeah.
that a little better.
And the only thing that I'll bring up now, and we'll kind of just roll from that into the WAMAC, is that there were two really big, three in the duel. Matthew Doyle versus Cale Meyer at 160. Kind of a flurry at the end. Doyle came out, got the first takedown, and then Meyer kept kind of charging back. But there was a flurry at the end where Doyle got a takedown and 2 near fall. It ended up winning 9-7 in the duel. Then at 170, you had number 1 Cole Davis of Independence versus number, was it 5? I think you had him. Jared Voss. And that was one that was scoreless going into the third. And Voss with a heck of a ride in the second period, right out for 2 minutes. And then he chose neutral to start the third, and Davis was in on a shot, and they were on the edge. Voss had a whizzer, and then you just saw him kind of hip into him and reach back and grab his, kind of clip his Davis's leg, and then hipped into him again and got him off balance, and then was able to readjust, got his leg out, hooked up a cradle, got the takedown, and then a quick turn before they went out of bounds to get 2 more, and he ended up winning 4-0 in the duel.
And we'll have when we get to the Wamac, you have to bring that weight up again.
Yeah, because it was pretty amazing. And then the third one in that duel, Trevor Volker versus Christian Kramer at 195, and that was heavily dominated by Volker. And of course, that was the only one that wasn't a rematch in the Wamac finals. 2 days later, Kramer moved up to 220, won a Wamac title at 220. Volker dominated his way through 195 as West Delaware ran away with it with 301 points.
301 points. That's a boatload of points.
Yeah, and beat Williamsburg by 125 and a half.
Yeah.
So that was pretty dominant. But we saw those rematches. Matthew Doyle won again over Cale Meyer. This time, I believe it was 5-3. Just checking. Yeah, 5-3. So, kind of.
Well, then
held that up.
Before that was in the. No, that was I was thinking of 170, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, in 170, the other rematch from the duel, Jared Voss beat top-ranked Cole Davis
in the
semifinals, and it was 10-3 that time instead of 4-0. And Voss got a couple turns in the second period to really kind of break things open. And as we found out, kind of the ball and chain and cradle are 2 things that West Delaware seems to do up and down the lineup, and they do it really well. So 2A teams and opponents are going to have to watch for that. But then Voss turns around in the final, and that bracket, if you're living under a rock, that bracket in the Wamac had 4 of the top 5 ranked wrestlers in Class 2A. You had number 1 Cole Davis of Independence. You had number 2 Abe Michael of Macokota. Number 3 Jax Flynn of Solon. And then Voss was ranked 5th. Voss finished the day with a 13-1 victory over Abe Michael in the finals. So,
and that was after he beat Davis. What did you say? 10-3 in the semis.
Yeah. So back-to-back matches. Yeah. He beat the top 2 wrestlers by combined 23-4.
That's a good day.
That is
a good weekend, actually.
And apparently, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the breakfast of champions. That's
what is it?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal. So that's that was a pretty impressive performance. Indy and West Delaware both had 3 champs in addition to Doyle. Isaiah Weber won at 126. Christian Kramer, as we said, moved up to 220. In addition to Voss, Wyatt Volker just steamrolled the 195 bracket. Volker, top ranked at 95, by the way, scored 19 points in his last 3 matches, and one of them was a pin, I think, in 309. So he had scored 19 points before that pin. Beat Gage Marty of Solon 19-7 in the finals. And then I think he scored 11 points in the first round match that he got a pin in the first period. So what was my math? 38, 57, like 68 points in the 4 matches. Wow. And 2 of them, or actually 3 of them didn't go to the distance because it was pin, tech fall. So he was impressive. And then Blake Engel, he was somebody that got a little bit of revenge in the semis. He lost to Chase Straw in the duel on Thursday, beat Straw in the semis, and then beat Caden Grip of Williamsburg in the final 7-2 for one of 3 West Delaware champs. Center Point Urbana.
But they had five finalists.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, 8 finalists,
8 finalists.
5 runner-ups.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that tells you the strength of their lineup up and down. And that's I
think 13 in the semis, if I remember right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
13 in the semifinals in a 14-team tournament. Jeez, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
And also, speaking of the 14-team tournament, you also have about 4 of the top 5 teams in the state in that conference as well. So it's not like it's a weak conference.
Yeah.
CPU.
CPU hit a couple champs, and Cole Whitehead at 113. A very dominant performance over Keaton Zemed of DeWitt Central. 6-0 in the finals. Keegan Schuler won by fall at 132 final as well. Solon had a couple champs in Hayden Taylor and Zeb Ganida.
Kind of their dynamic duel in the middle lineups there. But Taylor's match was pretty tight.
Yeah, with Jaden Payton.
Payton, right?
3-2.
And that one surprised me, at least the score part. I mean, I didn't see the match or anything, but that 3-2 match going with Taylor's.
Yep.
Yeah, both were pretty stingy in getting after it, but Taylor was in control for the most part. And the big one at heavyweight, really, pun intended, I guess. Taven Rich of Makokata pinned Carson Petlin in 134. Kind of hip tossed him to his back a little bit when Petlin was in on a single trying to finish and got a little extended and avenged the earlier loss.
His only loss, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was big. And of course, Neal Gaddy of Marion, their first champ since the Conway twins, like in 2017. So it's been a few years since Marion hit a champ, but Jason Haig got one there. And then Dyersville Beckman, which finished 5th as a team, which I think was pretty impressive for them.
I thought so too.
They had a champ in Evan Wolfcooley at 182 who beat Jack Newhouse. Those guys are ranked like 3rd and 4th. Beat him 3-0 in the finals.
I was at Beckman yesterday, ref, and man, they have a wonderful facility. They're the normal gym, and then they build another auxiliary gym that can hold 9.
Really?
I'm guessing can hold 9 mats if you laid them out.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
if there'd be much room for spectators, but I have to be up on the balcony. But it's just a wonderful facility, and they run a great tournament too. So it's their youth club. They've got it going.
Yeah, and it's starting to build up. And of course, Cody Ortman, I think, is the head coach, but Zach Witt from Prairie and UNI is an assistant there as well. So, got a good staff and some good things
They ran
building up there.
11 mats. Of course, there's for the little kids, they're splitting some of them up.
Mm-hmm.
So they had basically 1, 2. I think in the gym, the auxiliary gym, they had 4 mats, full mats set up and wrestling out there, the full mats. And then in the smaller gym, they had whatever it took to equal 11 or whatever. And man, they put I'm guessing between 300 and 400 wrestlers that were there yesterday, and we were done in I think 4.5 hours or something like that.
Wow.
So that's a lot of wrestling.
So we'll transition to the MVC. Wyatt, you were there for that tournament, Iowa City West. We thought that might be kind of wide open, and it would just depend on whose big guns kind of took care of business there. And West comes away with a team title first since 2012, I believe.
7 years, that'd be right.
So they scored 209.5 points. Prairie was second, 187. Kennedy, 181. Limar, 169. And then Cedar Falls rounded out the top 5 at 162.
Iowa City West had 5 champs.
That's impressive.
Wow.
It really was. And then they had a runner-up, so they had 6 in the finals. Which because we had kind of mentioned, I don't know if we did it last week or not, that it could have been 4 or 5 teams in the hunt.
Right.
And then to come away with 5 champs, Prairie had 3 champs. Kennedy had their one, and Lindmar with a couple champs. But I guess the couple of the matches that I was kind of interested in was 160 with 2 freshmen.
Yeah.
Aren't we all? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben Keeter and Tate Noctiboran,
Noctiboran.
City High and Lindmar.
Yeah, right, and because I didn't know how that would actually come out, but Noctiboran, it was 5-3 score, but basically controlled that whole match, which I don't know if it surprised me or not, but just to control the whole situation. The other one that's
So you said Noctiboran or
I meant
Keeter?
Keeter.
Keeter, yeah.
Okay, I might have said Noctiboran, but I meant Keeter.
Keeter, okay.
Two impressive freshmen.
I think we're going to see them battling,
Yeah.
unless they separate in size and weight or whatever. But it'll be fun the next few years.
Yeah, exactly. And then 82 with Barker and Plummer. I guess that was
170.
or 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That surprised me a little bit because Plummer. Remember, we watched Plummer. I think maybe pin him in the duel.
Yeah, I think I can't remember.
Might have been a fall, or it was. I think it was a pretty dominant win by Plummer at the time.
Yeah, and this was actually kind of the same way the other way around. I want to say it was 3 takedowns, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too. I mean, I always said it. The revenge factor is something to be
Said.
to be said. I mean, it's if you've got someone that's a couple of guys that are close like that, like that Keeter Noctiboran, now it's kind of the revenge factors in Noctiboran's corner. So you never know what'll happen next time. Maybe they'll meet at state or something.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I can't imagine these 2 guys not finishing top 8. It's finishing in there someplace.
I was kind of looking at 138 with Stanek and Witt, because Witt's been wrestling pretty well for Cedar Falls, and Stanek came away with a nice 6-3 win. Stanek from Xavier, so.
And Cedar Falls, they had 3 in the finals. They didn't have any champs, but they're like you had mentioned someplace. We talk so much that Ordner's really getting that thing going and doing a nice job up there. Going to the last few national Division III national tournaments, the wrestlers at Warburg spoke so highly of Ortner that I can't imagine this not kind of carrying over to the high school level.
Sure.
I think they had 4 in the finals, didn't they? Maybe.
Oh, maybe I missed one.
Yeah, they had 4.
But another,
4 runners.
But another one, Gambrel, won his 3rd title.
Yep, has a chance to join that group of 4-time champs next year.
Right, he won that 7-3 decision over Falk from Kennedy. And I think he got taken down to start with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then
Good battle,
and then handled him from there. But just to me, it's just surprising with. Not surprising like West Delaware having 8 in the finals, but with 5 champions from West.
Yeah. Not sure I saw that coming. I knew they had a good chance for champs. We knew that, but they also had a pretty good. They had 7 other place winners on top of that. So that's as impressive to me as
they had
the 5 champs. So
placed at 12, or whatever it was. Now I lost my train of thought in there.
Well, I'll just punch in a couple things where Kegley of Prairie and Stoner DeGroot, I think both won their 2nd straight titles as well. Bryce Park.
And Cluse also was a champ from Prairie.
Yep. And then it won 113 for Hunter there. And then Linmar's Bryce Park with the title. Abaski Mackay also for the Lions at 152.
Now there's a guy that kind of reminds me of Diakama Hollis. I like that name.
Oh,
Kimakai.
Yeah.
Yep, one of our favorites there. And then Gavin Baskin was Kennedy's champ, and then Dawson Sweet
from Jeff.
Back.
Brother of Nick Dreckman. So that's neat. Good to see that. Good job, Dawson.
won the heavyweight title there as well. So we'll see. I was just looking to see if Linn-Mar and City High might be in the same district.
I wondered that.
I'm
not
thinking
sure.
they are.
But they actually aren't. Interestingly, City High goes to Iowa City West, while Linn-Mar heads kind of northeast to western Dubuque for the district up
Our
there.
metro area goes 3 different directions this year. With I think Prairie goes over to Bettendorf, right?
Actually,
Is it 4 different directions?
Yes,
Oh,
because
Xavier goes to Marshalltown.
Oh,
I
yeah, I
believe.
forgot.
yep, and Prairie, as you said, heads east to Bettendorf. So there's a small faction,
Wow, that's unusual.
very unusual.
Yeah.
But I like
How many
it.
times have we seen it where I remember back in the early 90s, it was all the CRs and Iowa City schools that were clumped together.
With the
and
exception of Prairie sometimes.
Yes.
I remember one year, seven schools drove by Prairie to go to Iowa City West, and Prairie went north.
yeah, that's right. I remember that. Actually, that would have been.
It might have been even to Marshall.
Would have been like 2007, because I remember that being the year. Who was the old Eagle Grove kid that wrestled at Iowa City West for?
Ridge Kiley?
Is that? And then he went to Nebraska.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to think.
Okay, because that weight class there had
Is that right?
I think so, but I could never figure out what his
Cruz,
first and last name was.
Cruzeris, Wes Shetterly, and Ridge Kiley, all in the same bracket districts, and Shetterly and Eris ended up winning. Shetterly might even win a wrestle back
To go?
to go, and then those two wrestled each other in the state finals that year. And I think I remember them sending everybody, like you mentioned, they sent all these guys south, and the one southern team,
Did it go to
Epworth.
Yeah, Upworth.
I
Yeah,
think
I think
Epworth.
that's right.
because I think they ended up winning the district title up there and qualified for the state duels. So, interesting as we take a trip down memory lane.
And then did they win
for
the
that
state duels? No,
Or-
not sure if they won it that year or
No.
not. No, they didn't. Okay.
So, one thing to note, let's see, looking at the River Valley Conference, West Liberty won there. One of the things that stands out, Will Esmoil wins his 4th conference championship for West Liberty. 195 is kind of a big final there, where Udell from Regina is having a great season. Beat Tyler Thurston of North Cedar 9-1. I think those two have battled 3 different times now, and Udell has won all 3 of them.
And Thurston won the Jayhawk.
Yeah, so that tells you a little bit about how tough those guys are right there. Kobe Simon also won for West Liberty. The Tri-Rivers, we mentioned them, just how
Dominant.
yeah, just how that was more of a not if, but by how much. And of course, Lisbon ends up placing, I think, everybody
In the top 4.
fourth or better.
Right.
Yeah,
They only lost 7 matches all day.
really.
Yeah.
Wow.
They had 8 champs
12 in the finals. 12 in the
Yeah.
finals.
and 4 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And during that time, I think it was the 2nd round, maybe. Kel Happel recorded his 200th career victory. Of course, he won at 138 pounds and pinned Heath Moyer, who's a very good wrestler, a former state medalist for North Lynn, in 211 there in the finals. But speaking of North Lynn,
yeah. Nice tournament.
They got 3rd overall behind Alburnett, Kel Bridgewater, with a championship there for North Lynn.
They had 3 champs.
And Houston from Midland at 20.
But Northland's 3 champs.
Curtis Schott won at 145. And then
The 195, Nathan Reckamer.
he got 2nd.
Oh, did he?
Behind
Was he
Cole
2nd? My
Yeah.
fault. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
So they had 2 champs and 5
2
finals.
champs and yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
good performance. Then Carson Klosterman won a title for Alburnett. T.J. Lau and Luke Recker won titles for East Buck as well. So,
I was impressed with Alburnett. They had 11 medalists, though. That's a
Right.
great job with them.
I was too.
Yeah, the Pirates.
You think of them as being kind of a down year, and then
Well, a couple of years ago, they were having trouble fielding more than half of a team. You know,
so things are coming together a little bit
getting back to
again
normal.
for Coach Rush, Clayton Rush, up there. So, but again, that was just a juggernaut against everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost turned out to be a Lisbon duel in the final.
Speaking of juggernauts, the Northeast Iowa Conference.
Yeah, Waverly Shell Rock.
Equally as impressive.
Right. They come away with a championship up there.
8 champs, 3 seconds, and only lost 7 matches all day.
Really?
Is that what it was?
So there's
almost
a lot
identical.
Exactly. So that's big, and that's not unexpected, but just what they've been able to do. New Hampton stepped in there for a couple years to kind of knock them off their perch a little bit, but what is it, 4 in a row now or something like that? 3 or 4 in a row, and like something gaudy like 16 of the last 18 or something like that. They've conference titles they've won. At one time, Belle Plaine had that type of dominance in the South Iowa Cedar League under Bob Yillick. They had won like 13 or 14 straight conference tournaments in a row, and then kind of dropped in numbers and stumbled a little bit. And here they're back up on top.
I'm thinking 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. As short as that, they only had 5 on their team.
right?
Really?
Yeah.
Has it been that
low?
3 or 4 years ago, and now they're conference champs. That's a heck of a turnaround.
Yep, and 175 and a half, beating Iowa Valley by 12 and a half points. That's a pretty good comeback story for Belle Plaine. Of course, I think everybody recognizes Ethan Alley, one of those champs.
Just had 2 champs, so it was pretty much balanced.
And it was good to be named Ethan.
Yeah.
Both of them are Ethans. Ethan Argo at 113. So they had 6 finalists and 2 champs.
So, good for them. One that kind of surprised me a little bit, the Upper Iowa Conference. North Fayette Valley coming away with a team title over MFL Marmac, and did it in pretty impressive fashion. By almost 55 points, or right around 55 points, 54 and a half or so. Kind of a big one. Individually, kind of looking at Carter Decker of MFL, still unbeaten at 126. Is that right, Wyatt?
I could be. Yeah, I'm not
kind
real
of
sure.
really ascended your rankings. He's somebody that almost kind of reminds me of a freshman they had years ago in Kyle Pedretti. I just mean success-wise.
Right.
I don't mean personality or the way he wrestles. I'm just saying success-wise, he stepped in as a freshman and has dominated so far there as well. So
Yeah, his dad is one of the assistants.
okay,
Was one of my son's head coaches. So
okay.
little connection.
Oh wow, cool. Small world for that.
Wrestling.
But just kind of looking at that. Any other kind of things catch your eye as far as
Well, Steffens from Postville won at 220, so I
another
gotta throw
connection
that- I
there
gotta
too for
throw
you,
that in
right?
there, so-
Okay. I wonder if that would get brought up.
Postville.
Yeah.
So, so now we head into sectionals this week. Kind of scattered all over the place. you have any place that you'll end up? I know I will be going to the 1A sectional at Lisbon this weekend. I'll just kind of rattle off the teams that'll be there. And I'll have a heavy Tri-Rivers flavor. Obviously, with the host Lions, there'll be Alburnett. Will be there. Bellevue, Cascade, Central City, Midland, North Cedar, Northeast. Obviously, team race won't be there, but there should be some individuals, some really good individuals wrestling. And am I thinking that Noonan and they'll be at separate weights, right? Houston will be at 120 for Midland. Noonan from Cascade will be at 26.
Six. Yeah, because that'd be a battle, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I haven't decided where I'm headed. I was kind of asked to maybe help out a little bit at East Buchanan, but then you get up to the other Northeast Iowa MFL, which has the Postville-Monona thing in there. But East Buchanan's got Bosco, along with Beckman, East Buchanan, Hudson, Mac Valley, North Lynn, and North Tama. So, in all honesty, I haven't made a decision where I'm gonna end up.
You know, West Branch is also another kind of Eastern Iowa host. The Bears bring in Durant, Lone Tree, Louisa Muscatine, Iowa City, Regina, Wapello, and then of course Wilton, that has a strong wrestling tradition there as well. So Nashua Plainfield is probably BGM, another Gazette area school. They'll have Belle Plaine, as we mentioned, the South Iowa Cedar League champs. They'll also have Iowa Valley, which was second. And I'm going to be interested. This is one thing that I noticed. You kind of mentioned Hauk wasn't in the lineup for Lisbon. I also saw some changes with Will S. Moyle wrestling 160 for West Liberty instead of 152. Saw the same thing with Ben Smith at Iowa Valley, who wrestled upweight. I think he's usually a 60-pounder, wrestled 170 for the conference tournament. So don't know if that was just kind of an anomaly that just for the conference tournament that they wrestled up, or if it's something that we might see in the postseason, them being at different weights than they have been during the season. So.
I must say, myself can't see him bumping up for the postseason, but you never know. They may feel they have a better shot and better opportunities.
Sometimes that's the avenue that will get you to Des Moines.
Right.
So
the rest of the teams there with Belle Plaine, Iowa Valley, or of course the host BGM, English Valleys, HLV, Montezuma, and North Mahaska rounds out the 1A field there, and then 2A. I'm sure we'll have somebody staffed there. Is there any that really kind of stand out? Usually those Northeast Iowa ones really.
Well, your top three teams all host. You know, your Independence, Williamsburg, and West Delaware, and anytime you have those teams in there,
and Union,
it solidifies those sectionals. So they're all solid sectionals. Maybe like the Lisbon duel, it's kind of one-sided, but you still have a lot of individual matchups in there. So
right, West Delaware hosts Anamosa, Jessup, Macokota, Monticello, and Dubuque Wahlert. Of course, we mentioned in the Wamac breakdown, 170 could see a rematch between Voss and Abe Michael, two highly ranked kids there. And then of course,
they might be, and we are coming out with our rankings on Thursday. They'll probably be 1 and 2 again.
Really?
I mean,
you certainly make a good case for
not
it.
again, but Voss jumps up to that one.
I shouldn't say I don't mean again, but just by the way they finished in the Wamac.
Right.
Sure. And of course, that sectional pairs with Williamsburg for a district at Center Point Urbana the following week, and of course, Williamsburg has Benton Community, Center Point Urbana, Mid Prairie, Mount Vernon, Vinton Schausburg, and Williamsburg. And each of those schools, Benton Community has a couple tough kids. Center Point Urbana, we mentioned 2 or 3.
Couple champs in there.
Wrestlers. Mount Vernon, a couple. Arnie Gavin and Kamerling were runners up at the Wamac. Vinton Schellsburg had a finalist in Brady Ortner at 132, and of course Williamsburg they've got solid kids from top to bottom, and some really good ones in Jalen Schropp and Caden Grip and a few others. Union hosts BCL, UW, East Marshall, Nevada, South Tama, and West Marshall. There, South Tama had a couple finalists, and Logan and Garrett Arp as well. But that's certainly one that Union should do pretty well in, I would think.
And then Independence hosts Appleton, Parkersburg, Columbus, Dayton, Hartford, Iowa Falls, and Owine.
And that pairs it with Decorah, the Northeast Iowa group. They always seem to battle each other. And
it is a
Decorah's
conference except for Waverly, which is a 3A school, so which is somewhat, you kind of hate to see that. Yeah. I guess it'd be nice to have them split up a little bit.
Yep. Charles City, Crestwood, Decorah, New Hampton, Walk On, and of course the Upper Iowa Conference champ that jumps in there with North Fayette Valley. So, the one non-NEIC school is the Upper Iowa Conference champ. So
let's make it a little tougher.
Yeah. One to keep an eye on too. West Liberty heads to Davenport Assumption for one down there, and then of course DeWitt Central. Zemet. The Lens kid from Tipton will be in the mix there. And then you've got Comanche has a few strong kids as well, and Columbus Junction rounds that out. So that might be pretty fun to see how that plays out on Saturday as well.
And didn't Assumption were they runner up at the back this weekend behind North Scott?
Really? They progressively have gotten better.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was getting. They've quietly improved to me all year long, because you don't think of them as being that solid, but they're getting to be a pretty good team.
So that'll be fun to keep an eye on there on Saturday. And, of course, they meet up with a Fairfield sectional, which I just mentioned Solon will be down there with Washington, Iowa as well. So it's that time of year.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good sectionals around, so or interesting sectionals. So
in 3 weeks we'll be doing our wrap up for the prep season.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow,
it's hard to believe already.
So
maybe this coming weekend next year, maybe readjusted. It might be at state duels. I don't know. Who knows? But it sounds like something's at least being discussed. So
I'm not afraid to throw this out there. I've heard, and I'm going to preface it by saying these are rumors. I haven't heard anything concretely, but I've heard there's a lot of talk about abolishing the sectional weekend. You guys can chime in if you've heard anything similar, but we could see the end to a sectional weekend, and that weekend being used for the state duels and kind of having things spread out a little bit, possibly.
And as I understand it, the motivation for this is, I believe the Wednesday, the contract with the Wells Fargo Arena is being renegotiated.
This is the last year of the contract, so they had to renegotiate the contract. And
so maybe taking the Wednesday away, and because if the duels are 3 weeks sooner, or whatever.
And I'd be okay with that. I don't know how you guys would feel, but I'd be okay with duels on that sectional Saturday.
I did not like the day before as a coach. So
I know there's some coaches that absolutely love it.
Some do.
Yeah. Okay. And actually the ones that that enjoy it, their comments to me are, my kids that don't make it to the state on the individual tournament get to wrestle in the state tournament, and that's why they like it on that Wednesday. And I get that.
it's still a state tournament.
Yep.
Right.
I'll just put it that way.
That makes sense.
And here's the thing: I think people will adjust wherever it's at.
I do too.
I mean, we saw that. You being one of the ones that, didn't like it there, but you know what?
They have adjusted.
I like it somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think a week later was the best. I'm not sure the day before was the best. At least you didn't get the best of each team most of the time, because you would have some people. I held some guys out in the semifinals, because we are going to have the same matchup the next day. So,
But I'll also throw this out there. When it was the week after, the teams that came to the Cell Center, the losers wrestled one duel, where they have
Right.
changed that now to where they wrestle three. So would the attendance
yeah.
change? Because hey, I get to watch. Even if they lose 3 times, they've got to watch them 3 times.
I will
I
say
think
there's a
so.
bit of deflation though after the individual state tournament.
Right.
It's hard to keep your team motivated for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that sounds funny. You're going to a state tournament,
but I would
it's
could
tough.
see that.
You have to make weight again and such.
Well, and let's face it, that Saturday night in Des Moines is the crown jewel,
Right.
and that's why it didn't make a lot of sense to, some people had mentioned,
Have it after.
have state duels on Saturday and have Friday be, have Wednesday through Friday the individual tournament. It's just that is just so much the culminating factor. And as you mentioned, that week after state, it's tough. And not to mention, for individuals that are beat out sectionals, I remember talking to so many
3
coaches
weeks
that
in.
it was
That's 3
harder
weeks.
to keep those kids engaged for 3 weeks, till when they compete again.
Right.
So
And then you had the issue of non-qualifiers going down to state with all of those state dual teams, teams that are heading to state. And plus the regional for 3A was after the individual state. So you had individual state, regionals,
Yeah.
and so you had to take your whole team down, try and find a place to have them work out, and it was a mess. So that wasn't good either. So, but I'm glad they're doing something. I would rather have the tournament wherever it is than not have it at all.
I always thought January would be kind of a mid-January, showcase it, have it kind of right in the middle of things. But the only problem with that would be a lot of times you're screwing up home tournaments and stuff
Other
like
tournaments.
that. If they're gonna get rid of sectionals, which isn't a bad idea, just because a lot of those sectionals, we've seen some places where brackets have had one person,
Right.
or 2 people. So yeah, it's going to make things tougher for 1A, 2A competitors at the district level, but going to all just districts, I think would be a good move, and then placing this in the weekend that normally would be.
And if you did
For
it
sectionals.
that early in January, would you have the correct 8 teams or the strongest 8 teams, that you might
There.
have at the end, So,
Well,
I mean, that's tough. I mean,
that's-
something though.
Yeah,
I
I thought
it.
like mid-January.
Yeah, that might be better. Mid
a
to
little
late
bit further,
January. Yeah, Yep.
But I think
that would be good. Then.
sectional's gone, and that first weekend of February, and then that can. And I'm not trying to trivialize it by saying get it out of the way. I'm just saying that way you can shift directly to
the individual.
individual, with districts and state.
Yep.
after
The
that.
duels are a lot of fun. That's for sure. So
We'll keep an eye on that, see if anything else breaks or.
I have a fun fact before we
Sure.
sign off here.
Sure.
I don't know if you can see this or not. This is the USA Wrestling logo. It's a very popular logo, and I found out Friday night at the Jefferson Athletic Hall of Fame. We've started that 4 years ago, and we inducted former state champion Cal Jenkins into that. And Cal wrestled at Michigan when he left Jefferson. Wrestled at Michigan for Cliff Keen,
Right.
And they were putting their company together, wanted a logo, and they had Cal Jenkins was one of the models for this logo as a photo,
Oh, really?
and he was the top wrestler right there. I did not know that. How did I not know
So
that?
he was
right?
the one getting thrown.
He was the one getting thrown, and he said they had to do it 12 times to get the right photo.
That's pretty neat. Not neat for him, obviously, getting tossed for a dozen.
Isn't that something? Here's the actual photo right here. right there, and that's
Oh, wow.
Cal in the yellow singlet. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I did not
a lot
know
of people have that
Kinda neat.
tattoo on. They've got it.
Yep.
Obviously in shirts and all sorts of.
So
things.
who's the other one?
I don't know. I didn't ask him.
Oh.
I didn't think to ask him. I did wonder that
After the
after
fact.
the fact. Yeah. So
Did you mention the fact that he's been tattooed on a lot of different
I
people's
didn't.
bodies?
That's what,
That might be a different.
he probably knows that. Cal's very active in wrestling. He was at Co the other night, and anyway, he's has season tickets to Iowa, and he's still around. He's very active. So
Oh, cool, cool. So that's kind of neat. Neat little bit of trivia.
I wonder if he gets what do you call it? Commission off off the tattoos.
I bet not.
All right. Well, we're at that time of season. We're at that time of year now. The season's heading to the postseason. Sectionals this weekend. Districts will be state. Will be the grand march before you know it. Tune in next week. We'll break down just how those postseasons kicked off for Class 1A and 2A, and look ahead to regional duels and the districts for all three classes the following week. Any other things to add before we head out?
Yeah, good luck, and hopefully we get those bodies that were missing at the conference tournaments, with injuries or whatever. Hopefully we can get those back on the mat because
Yeah, because there's a few of them around
I'd like
from
to see those guys.
different schools.
And I get it. Hold them out of that and get
Yeah.
them, for next week or this week, next week, and so forth.
Sure.
So
All right. Wyatt?
let's keep wrestling on the move.